Is anybody there? There's no audio on Zoom.
Audio. Okay. Okay. Joel, can you hear us now?
Yes. Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay.
Would you give a microphone to the supervisors when they have their comments?
Well, technically, there are no supervisors tonight, but we do have a supervisor update, but we will do that for sure. And then if anything pops up, so if you don't hear one of the microphones in the room, just let us know, Joel.
Okay, because Zoom is usually like a great stereo system with one channel out.
All right. Well, then I thought I did hold on, let me make sure this is shared. How about that? Are we glowing yet? And now we're glowing. We're all getting a tan. So so if you didn't hear on Zoom when we started, I think everybody for showing out tonight. We have a very short agenda, but we have things to talk about in terms of the Costco project and our chance to get our comments in for the draft environmental impact report. So as we move forward, the question to the officers was, we have our meeting agenda. Is there any changes that we need to see on this tonight?
No.
All right. So moving along. This is an opportunity for public comment when we start a meeting. So if you have something that you have a comment on or a question, not that we have the answers, but we'd ask you to find one of the microphones that are sitting around at the desk, and they have to be, you push the button, it turns green, you let go, you can talk, and then people on Zoom will hear you, we hope, and we'll hear you up here. So this is an opportunity to make public comments on matters that are not on the agenda tonight. If you want to talk about something that is on the agenda, we just ask you to hold your comments till we get to that part of the agenda. So are there any comments in the room? That's pretty easy. Is anybody on Zoom, if you go ahead and raise your hand. All right, no hands up. Away we go. So we like to remind everybody at the beginning of our meetings how you can become a voting member of APAC, and that it's you volunteer to work on a project review, a subcommittee, an ad hoc committee, contribute in some of our processes. And we always like to remind everybody that we have a process that we work with. It's entirely possible that you would contribute something that would make it better. And so we're always looking for that. So if there's anybody who wants to work on a project, you can try and come up and talk to us after the meeting. I will probably forget. So our email address is on our agenda. It's on our website, and the officer email addresses are on the agenda as well. So if you have an interest in working on something, a specific something, or anything that you'd like to just raise your hand for and let us take advantage of your volunteering, we'd love to have that. So that's how you become a voting member. The next item on our agenda tonight, supervisor communications. And Supervisor Ferrero, I know he can't be here tonight. He has another event he has to attend. But Cindy Munt is here tonight, and she has some notes from the supervisor. Just make sure that the button's green on that, on the microphone on the top.
Supposed to be right.
Green. I know. That seems about right. Yeah.
No. Okay. Just a few notes that the supervisor, he wish he could be here, but yeah. That may be the notes at page. We talked about.
Can you hold closer to the microphone, please?
I thought that was just for two.
Is that one working? Oh, yeah, that is. Okay.
All right, here we go. Greg wanted to talk about there's an appointment of the new CAO at the county, Sue Phillips. It used to be Sue Henneke, but she got married. She's Sue Phillips. She has a long-standing reputation serving the county for over 24 years, and he's very excited to have her as the new CAO. Regarding Costco, they held the Costco and Planning Building held a public meeting on February 25th. It was well attended. The public comment period for the draft EIR is still open, and that's until March 23rd. The supervisor's concerned that the timing of the widening of White Rock Road is competing with the projected timing of the Costco opening, if it's approved, and there's no lawsuits. Costco has an aggressive timeline that may be faster than the completion of the widening, so he's really concerned about that. Yesterday at the board meeting, they approved a signalized intersection at Selva Valley and Appian. And they added it to the CIP. And they also approved moving the road overlay of the El Dorado Hills Boulevard from Saratoga to Harvard into their maintenance project. Projects in the CIP have to be financed either through the developer funding or grants, and there's no options to finance the overlay. So that's why they moved it over to the maintenance. And it's projected to be completed in 2 to 3 years. Last week, there was a VHR, the Vacation Home Rental Ad Hoc Committee. They held a public meeting at the El Dorado County Board Chambers. That also was well attended, and a lot of good comments from the public. And now the ad hoc will take the comments and consider amending the VHR ordinance on the west slope only, not Tahoe, just the west slope. So some of the main concerns that were brought up were the buffer zones on large parcels, 5 or more acres, occupancy numbers, and differentiating between attached and detached guest houses. The board is reevaluating the sign ordinance that was just approved late last year. They want to consider allowing exemptions for the digital signs where appropriate. Town Center wanted them, and we didn't know about that. So they're looking at that. Any changes will have to be approved by the sign ordinance ad hoc committee and the planning commission and the board of supervisors. So it'll take a little while to get that done. And finally, the board, he'd appreciate if residents would report all the roadside vendors for the food and flour. There are really a lot of them around now, and it's becoming a problem. It's illegal. They do not pay for business licenses. They're not inspected by the Department of Health, and when they're serving food, and to call in about food truck violations, that's you would call environmental management, and that number is 530-621-5300. For produce and flowers, that's in the ag department, and they can be reached at 530-621-5520, or you can always email our office and we'll forward it to the correct office. So that's the update he gave me.
So, what's going on in Silver Valley and Appian? So they're doing a 4-way signal there?
You know what, I'm not exactly sure if it was 4-way on that one, but there's development that could possibly happen. So since they're a possibility, they always want to put it in the CIP. So if it happens, then the developers have to pay towards that. Oh, no. Yeah, just in CIP.
Your question, Ben. The Central El Dorado Hills specific plan, part of their mitigation, one of the few traffic mitigations, was that they were going to put a signal at Appian Way on Silva Valley, and there was going to be a signal, and then they're going to add turning lanes. And we couldn't figure out why that was necessary for a project that was 2.5 miles the other way, but that's what the county wanted at the time. So, but they're talking about doing that now, and I think that was the concern. And I also wanted to, okay, Cindy's not elected, so we can ask questions, but she probably can't answer for but yeah, I think I heard from a lot of community members, and I wasn't able to comment at the board hearing about, hey, why are we talking about the overlay here on the boulevard when it's the highest traffic road we have, and not getting that done when we're talking about a traffic signal maybe that we might need. So there are mechanisms at the county, and we're extending an invitation to DOT to come and talk about it next month. Fingers crossed that they're able to have somebody, if not Raphael, then member of the staff. So are there any other questions that you think Cindy can ask?
If I could just add,
Yes, sir.
if I could just add something, elaborate why that particular intersection is targeted. Last year, Parker Development had a proposal on Village M5.
M5, yeah.
The planning commission voted against that proposal. Under appeal, it then naturally went to supervisors. The supervisors split 2-2 because they could not get a majority. The motion failed, so it had to wait for a full year. That full year comes back around, and we'll probably see it tentatively before the planning commission in the May timeframe.
Okay.
So this is just in anticipation of whatever the commission and the supervisors decide on that, but it's in preparation of one way or the other. Obviously, if it doesn't go forward, then the CIP allocation will not be needed.
Okay. And so, and just to make you stand there longer, sorry, is your understanding is that the project will be coming back as it was proposed the last hearing got denied, or it'll be a different, because I was unclear on if they were just going to go ahead and process that project with the original lot count and not do the double up.
It's not clear yet. I don't know.
Okay. More will be revealed.
Yeah.
So thank you, Bob. Bill, you have there you go.
Yes, I do, Cindy. Hi. Regarding the possible, sorry.
Is it me?
Yeah, because people on Zoom can't hear.
Oh, thank you. Regarding the potential widening of White Rock Road that Supervisor Ferrero referenced, where on White Rock Road do you know, if you know from his notes, where that would be?
Yeah.
It's from
The schedule,
post,
excuse me, the schedule, if it happens, it would be from
Road.
Latrobe all the way to 50. And there's coming up, there's a $14 million proposal cost to widen that road. And they predict that, again, if Costco goes through, let's face it, guys, it would be absolutely essential. So the timing issue would be, is it required that that road be widened and operating before Costco can open? Will it be constructed at the same time as Costco is being constructed? Those are all issues that are up in the air, but there is funding that's coming up, I think, in next month in front of the Board of Supervisors to add $14 million to the budget, or which one is it? CIP, to cover the widening of that road.
You got some information on that as well.
I definitely cannot speak for DOT on anything. But the rationale given before the supervisors on Tuesday was that, according to their analysis, it is important that the justification of widening the road to only 4 lanes is from Post Road actually to the freeway, Silver Valley. But that the justification is that because of the level right now of traffic that exists in that area today, the moment that the East Ridge development starts scaling up and homes are actually developed, that'll probably flip it into F. So with or without Costco, DOT believes that the widening is now justified at this stage. So technically it has nothing to do with Costco. I'll leave it to you to determine whether or not you believe there's a relationship or not.
And we'll leave it to you at the planning commission when it comes before you. So
Going towards the freeway. Thank you.
okay, are there any more questions for Cindy?
You know, excuse me, I just want to add something. Bill and I and people in Four Seasons have been looking at the expansion of White Rock Road. And we have made numerous suggestions on how that road should be built. And we're talking from Carson's Crossing to Latrobe, okay? This is the other side. It seems to me very suspicious that all of a sudden now they're talking about putting in and widening that road from Latrobe up to the expressway, especially being that we've been asking the expressway to improve the on-ramp going up towards Placerville for over 11 years, and they have never acquiesced in doing any of that work. So I don't know if this is all tied together, but I kind of think maybe they're going to call it Coswade's Way or something or other. I don't know.
And do you have a microphone back there so that we can hear you on the recording?
I have to press anything?
No, just talk.
Oh, okay.
Like,
I have a question. I know that
probably
the,
away.
I know
There you go.
that they keep kind of passing down the old Country Club Road that's going to be by the plan of Costco behind Village Green.
Yeah.
Has there been any prelim talks about, I know they say they don't know how much and it's kind of like tossing the ball down the road. Has there been any preliminary discussions about any kind of funding for that?
Well, it's in the CIP, which is a 20-year document, and there is no specific funding assigned to it. And, the entire plan for Country Club, the extension is to extend it across Silver Valley, go through the golf course and come out onto Serrano Parkway. And we have a quarterly meeting with DOT and planning, and we keep telling them we could save you about $60 million if you don't do that. Because the total project's like $80 million for, I think, 3 segments of Country Club. But nothing's identified. And typically when something's on the CIP, it's a development project contributes most of the funds. Either way, or you have to wait for the funds to accumulate over time from other development projects. There's no funding right now.
And then where's the funding coming from the Grants Pass from Elk Grove that's going to be connected to the expanded White
So
Rock?
that's the connector JPA, and it's all the government, all the agencies. So you have the city of Folsom, city of Rancho Cordova, city of Elk Grove, Sacramento County, El Dorado County. The El Dorado County part is this big, which is why you're seeing things happening in the other cities, because cities have a little more money to work with, as well as the county. We've had the JPA come and talk to us. We have a lot of concerns about the noise impacts, specifically on White Rock by Four Seasons, by Stonebriar, everything over there. And they have said in the past that without federal funding, it's probably not going to happen, the JPA part. So, but there are elections every 2 years for congressmen, congresswomen. They're envisioning something will happen along those lines. But the county doesn't have funding per se for that. We contribute a 10,000 a year, or it's less than 100, a few like $10,000 or $20,000 a year we contribute, but it's mostly for the design they've done for the project. So the design and everything else is completed, and what we've contributed our funds, we still are contributing funds every year because we're part of the JPA. But the construction, there's no money for it yet.
Okay.
So unless somebody wants to write a check.
And do you know if Costco is going to be contributing? I don't know, Marty, you read most of it. If they're going to be contributing to the Country Club Road in part of this plan?
They said at the scoping meeting they are not.
They are.
And we'll get to that too when we're talking about it tonight. Yeah, we
Okay.
have some questions about that.
Does anybody else want, John's?
Yeah.
Here. Oh, Marty.
Hey, thank you very much for being here again. Local residents, thank you very much. Before I go on with this text copy that I wrote here, I want to address to everybody, and also for the people on the Zoom meeting here, we have a lot of Zoom watchers here, that the traffic that is being brought by this Costco to El Dorado Hills and the surrounding area is anywhere between 24 to 25,000 cars a week. Thousands. And that's based on a 150,000 square foot Costco facility. This facility will be 12% bigger than the facility in Folsom or in any others. So we have over 25,000 cars coming to this particular facility. On the gas station that takes the gas of 32 pumps, opens at 6 a.m. in the morning and closes at 10 p.m. at night. According to Google, they're participating between the 10 to 15,000 cars a day, a week coming to this gas station. The amount of traffic that brings to this particular area is just insane. So I'm very, very happy to see that BOS number one, Greg, there addressed the issue of White Rock because it's going to be a major concern as a feeder road. As he mentioned many times before, he wants to bring in people from South Folsom to the Costco in El Dorado Hills. Well, you better fix his road. It's a feeder road to this new potential Costco. Big problem. Another thing is, like we said earlier, Country Club Drive, we don't know when that's coming or not going. As we heard earlier, I'm talking about March of last year from Rafael Martinez, there's a potential chance to put 3 traffic lights in. 3. One from the exit from the freeway at Pong, when you take that right turn. Then one to going to the Costco gas station. And then the future one will be, if that ever will be built or connected, will be one on Country Club Drive. Because that Country Club Drive will have to connect all the way through El Dorado Hills Boulevard. So I really would like the people understand there what's all at stake here. You have schools there of 4,000 kids, 400 kids, a middle school and a high school with a huge amount of traffic on Silver Valley Parkway. Now you throw another 25,000 cars on a weekly basis. I don't know where all this traffic going to go. Talking to the chief of fire department here earlier, he has a big concern also about evacuation. We have a new member who's running for the board in Folsom. One of the main things in Folsom there is evacuation. Folsom South, Bidwell, anybody who takes this freeway exit at Bidwell, they know how much chaos that is. Well, they organize this all, the overpasses that they're supposed to create in Folsom are off the table because now they figured out they're way too expensive. So they're off. So I think we want to definitely keep the eye on Costco here, the traffic, the noise, air quality, the lighting, and the hours of operation and the truck traffic that comes with it. I know my time is up. Thank you. Sorry.
So, and we're going to get into it right now. Cindy, have a seat. Oh, there are seats up here. You could volunteer. All right. Thank you. So, and we are getting into this right now, and there's some points about that too. We have a lot of questions about the traffic impact analysis that was done because, for the EIR, we talk about vehicle miles traveled. They're talking like 23,000 a day, but that doesn't mean there are 23,000 cars a day. So, how you extrapolate those numbers and make them match up, it's tough because I think their highest impact day is a Saturday in the morning hour. It's like 1,600 cars. But when you would do the math, it doesn't quite square. So we have a lot of questions. So I guess we're going to jump into this now. And I saw your microphone. Go ahead, Cindy.
Oh, okay, no problem. Hey, everybody, my name's Linda Campbell. Welcome. I see a lot of new faces. I love that. So I figured I'd just kind of kick it off. I am the chair of the Transportation Committee, but I'm always here to support the board. So I do want to say just the reminder that APAC is a citizen-led organization. We are not part of the government. Thankfully, our supervisor provides us updates. So when we're here to review it as a community and have a community voice. And so I hope everybody feels comfortable sharing their thoughts, sharing their feedback. There's been some work that we've been doing already, and John will go through that in the presentation where things we're presenting But this isn't final from us. We would like your feedback if you want to incorporate into our review. But then also you can review things on your own and send information in. The more details, the better, because all of it's going to have to be responded to for the final EIR when it comes out. And even if something isn't suggested right now, we can recommend it. So you'll see that some in the presentation. So anyways, I just wanted to make sure I said welcome to everybody. And I look forward to your feedback, and definitely participation is helpful. So thank you.
Hey, Linda. Just in case,
Turn it off.
friendly up here, so that's fine. Before we get, oh, you have something?
So John, could I just say something on behalf of the planning commission? I wanted to let everybody know that we really do appreciate and encourage participation and information. I encourage anything that you might want to say in terms of contributing to the EIR. You also send it to each individual member of the commission. I know my fellow members are probably going to lash at me for saying, suggesting that, but honestly, by the time we get the draft and then the final, this thing's going to be pages long, thousands of pages long. We can't possibly absorb that. And the sooner we are given everybody's thoughts, and don't assume just one letter is enough. If you really are passionate about it, bring new things out. When the draft is actually released, don't take that also as the final word. That's a time to really then scrutinize and to, on both sides. I don't know how the commission's going to come down, quite frankly, on this issue. I think it's a toss-up. I've seen a number of social media posts saying this thing's already been decided. I can assure everybody it has not been. I think that supervisors and certainly members of the commission are open and willing and more than eager to give everybody a full voice and to consider this thing in the future. So again, I encourage people to use APAC, because I quite frankly will rely very heavily on APAC's opinion and everything you feed, but also any opinion of any individual member of this committee will also be taken very seriously, at least by this commissioner. Anyway, thank you.
Do you have a microphone back there?
I do.
Awesome.
And actually, feel free to wave at me if this is the wrong time to raise
Oh,
these questions.
There you go. There you go. Perfect.
And I've seen Costco for a long time now coming in here. I think the last APAC meeting I was at was one of the original where Costco came with the Up the Hill project, et cetera. And I'm grateful for that and the work that you guys do and the time that you put into it. I guess my question really is, as a resident, to your commentary, when Costco comes in, what is the policy that is being forethought, or is there any way that we can continue planning on a parallel structure that has consequences, or is there a monitoring of all the concerns that are going on? For example, just one example, I talked to the air quality guy the other day at the CSD up there at Cameron Park. Once it goes in and the air quality, who monitors the air quality to see that if the residents become more at risk based on the traffic or the consideration that we think may or may not happen? And his answer was, it's none that he knows. So I don't know if he's wrong, right, or where that answer is, but it's the traffic on Silver Valley Silver Valley between those schools. It's a safety issue. It's an emergency response issue. It's a fire issue, et cetera. The air quality is a residential issue. It's something that is the residents or the constituents that I'd assume that our district supervisors and county officials and planning would take into consideration and then monitor, and there will be consequences if it turns out that they have detrimental effects. And some of the effects may just be our 9 and 10 rated schools of Silver Valley, Rolling Hills, and Oak Ridge deteriorate because the housing assessments or prices go down based on the traffic and flow and the pollution of noise or air or et cetera comes, or the challenge of the traffic that comes in here. I assume the Melrose, that's a policy decision, will disappear from our assessed property taxes once this new revenue comes in from potentially Costco. And that if our house costs values go down, that our property taxes and assessments will equivalently go down as well. And we'll be reduced and have that as part of this. And that's a planning factor that you guys are considering, and that is in the works already. Because as we decide these things, where is it, when, I assume that's parallel planning that's happening. There are policy decisions, there are monitoring decisions, and then there's consequences or laws or permitting decisions that could be done by the state or the county that can influence that. Thank you, sorry.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll get to that here in a minute, but I will respond to monitoring is always the thing that we have a concern about. And typically we're looking at residential projects. And when we look at monitoring, we're looking at, during the construction phase. And that's sort of I don't want to say an easier quantitative thing to be on top of, because they do have obviously county enforcement. They're out there looking at, they're doing their dust mitigation, they're doing, the sound and that type of thing. But that's during construction. Our challenge has always been the ongoing monitoring for later. So with a residential project, it's a residential project. There's not a lot to monitor. But when there's things like in the business park, or I think we had an equestrian project that was proposed on Green Valley Road, the monitoring on that was essentially like, well, residents will let us know when they're exceeding. That's not how it works. So our recommendation is always there has to be an effective monitoring and mitigation project, a program. It's ongoing and sustaining. And that's tough in a county that's, has a $20 million budget hole right now. But they do have a lot of enforcement staff now to go out and look at these things. So that's something that we always ask for. We ask for, and I hope the community will also ask for those things too as we go forward. So.
Project like this is going to have either planning department or supervisorial conditions of approval. We approve this, but you have to do all these things to get your final sign-offs. What we are going to propose in our draft from APAC is conditions of approval. You've just brought up one, quite frankly, I had not considered, maybe other APAC members already have. Right? What kind of monitoring should we require? Should it be done quarterly, semi-annually, annually? What should be the monitoring stations? Should they be next to each of the schools? Because I'm going to say that children are one of the special privileged groups that we monitor specially for. So young lungs are affected by emissions. So I think we should probably have some sort of required quarterly or monthly meeting monitoring at the school sites, just to see. Of course, we have to establish a baseline. What is it now? And then test to see what it goes. But you've made several good ideas and comments. I really hope you will, when we get further to the project tonight, you will bring those back up. We can take notes. Maybe you'll be able to write some of those, and please send us an email, because quite frankly, the 4 of us up here, plus about 3 or 4 people in the audience that are very involved with APAC, we do most of the writing. We need other people to contribute with it, because quite frankly, in a project this size, it gets exhausting, and we have other equally large and significant projects like Marble Valley, Lime Rock. What am I missing? A third one. Yeah, so there's a bunch of projects that take a lot of work, and I get tired of it. I just said, I want to turn it off so you guys do it, because I've done it for 10 years now. So, but so as we get through the program, please make your comments, make your suggestions, write them down, everyone, and then we can react to them, and we can send in a response to the EIR with all the questions and conditions of approval that we want to have answered or enforced. Thank you.
Oh, we do this every meeting as we moved it to the start of the meeting because when we do it at the end of the meeting, people are leaving. Alistair, do you have something? Yes. Hydro-
Yes, as far as I know, on the process of the EIR, and to answer this gentleman's concern, once we address the issues in the EIR, they are mitigated, hopefully. Once Costco's built, and we're 2 years down the road, and this gentleman says, hey, we're poisoning the air, there is no way of turning the clock back, is there? And I think that was what this gentleman is looking for. Is that not right?
You mentioned enforcement, but yes,
Well,
Yeah.
so I think we'd better not kid ourselves that we turn the clock back. This is our only opportunity, and I quite endorse the fact that we have to speak now, but I just wanted to clarify. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So, it's in my head, right? So we're gonna, very quickly, these are the same things we talk about almost every month. So these are projects that are either under review, in process of some sort. And just to let members of the community know that these things are still ongoing, even if we're not talking specifically about them tonight on that list. Costco's in the list, but so the Village of Marble Valley specific plan, we're waiting for the final environmental impact report to come back. The same for the Lime Rock Village specific plan. I know that there's some suggestion about when they might be coming to the Planning Commission and then subsequently on to the Board of Supervisors, depending how things happen at the Planning Commission. But we anticipate that it'll probably be a busy summer for those. Marble Valley is 3,200 homes. Lime Rock is 800 homes. It's a pretty significant project. Town and Country Village, the Board of Supervisors sent the project back to the Planning Commission for additional review and analysis. So they didn't approve it. The Planning Commission did pass it forward with some concerns. Haven't talked to the applicant in the last couple of weeks, but I know they're working on it. They're trying to determine what their process is going to be. So expect to see that come back in some fashion. We'll talk about the Costco project tonight. The draft EIR was released on the 21st of January. We do have a 60-day, which is the max we get for draft environmental impact reports. Our public comment period ends on March 23rd, which is why we're soliciting input again tonight. So we can get our comments in and any good ideas or good questions that the community has that we can add to what we're going to submit. The public information meeting was held in Cameron Park, the CSD, inside their big community center on the 25th of February. It was a pretty good turnout. And it was more in the fashion of like what scoping meetings used to be, where there'd be exhibits and stations and you'd walk through and talk to specific experts or specific parts of their project team and give them some information that hopefully they received in a good way. And then they were there to answer questions as well. So I think there was a good turnout. I would like to have had that happen here in El Dorado Hills as opposed to Cameron Park, but that's what was available. So we'll talk about Costco here in mere seconds. Generations of Green Valley, the draft ER was published over a year ago. We provided our comments on that. There's been nothing coming back, no updates. We've not talked to the applicants since then. The Gateway El Dorado specific plan, which is basically to the north side of where the Tractor Supply is in the business park. They're proposing to use parts of their R&D zoning, but also enhance that with some mixed use for some retail, commercial, and some multifamily housing opportunities inside there. The scoping meeting was in early February 10th. And we've had them here to talk to us a few times, and we're hoping they'll come back again as their project moves forward. So what we're waiting on specifically with that is a draft EIR to be released. So moving forward from there, now we'll talk about what we've been talking about. So Costco, and again, the public comment period ends on March 23rd. And I'll say it again right now, and I think Tim said it as well. If you have things that you want to share with us and you think it's appropriate for us to consider in our review, with all the volunteers working on it, please share them with us tonight. But just because you have shared them with us, you definitely should make your own public comments as well, because hearing it once is fine. Hearing it many times is probably more beneficial and gets a little more attention. So with that said, oh, and that's the project email at the county. It's edhcostco@edcgov.us. And that's on the project documents when we have posted on our website. So again, just a quick visual. We know what we're talking about because I think most of us have been living this with this for a while. Silver Valley Parkway will be the warehouse side will be on the between Clarksville Crossing and Silver Valley, and the fuel station will be on which they call the north side, which to me it's the east side. But so and this this is what we're talking about. And again, it's a little more detail that they had on another map. They're talking about a multi-level parking facility for the warehouse specifically, and that's just a little closer look at it. And so our slides will be posted online probably by tomorrow morning. So when we look at this, I myself have about 74 or 84 pages of notes, and we distribute that among our volunteers and our officers. There's no way we're going through 84 pages of anything tonight. So when we thought about that, we thought that probably the more concise way to do this tonight is just to hit highlights, which means just because we don't have something on here, it doesn't mean that we haven't thought about it. It just means that we are not that far along in forming and organizing this, and we got to get it done in 2 weeks. So here we go. So tonight we're going to talk about 6 items with the project overview, concerns about traffic and VMT, the vehicle miles traveled, which is the CEQA standard, the infrastructure concern, the public health and air quality, which I struggle with because I need more help on that. I don't think I need more expertise or somebody who has a little more time involved in that. So I'm hoping our volunteers can coalesce around that. The noise, lighting, and aesthetics of both the construction and the operation of the facility. And then we'll talk a little bit about what we're beginning to find for formal requests. Now, this is a response to the draft EIR. So everything we're submitting should be about what's in the draft EIR. We can't say, we don't like your project. That's not, I mean, we could say that, and they're going to say, hey, thanks for submitting that. And that's the response. So when we submit responses, we were hoping to get something back that's constructive from them saying, oh, we know that, oh, yeah, we recognize your concern. Here's a proposed mitigation. Typically, they just say, well, there's a mitigation already ready, but it's also valuable for the planning commissioners. And if it gets to the Board of Supervisors, for them to also see this concern and be thoughtful about it as well. So that's where we're going tonight, what we're going to talk about. Where's our clock? Okay. Wait, do we jump ahead? Hold on. Oh, okay. Time change, just making sure we're on time. So let's talk about the project overview. Obviously, it's a Costco warehouse and fueling station. It's on Silver Valley Parkway. They have a north site and a south site. The warehouse is on the south site, the fueling station, and some remainder property, which is also zoned for commercial regional. It's a commercial regional designation, big box. So those are on the north side. The warehouse itself is 165,000 square feet, which is a little bigger than the Costco in Folsom. And the fuel facility is actually very big. It's 13,000 square feet under a canopy, and that's on the north side. Our concern here, obviously, where everybody starts and ends, is the Oak Meadow Elementary School. When you look at the property boundaries, not where the physical facilities are at, but the property boundaries are 65 feet apart. So that's where we're at. So when we're talking about what APAC's looking at here, we're talking about, we like to review, all elements of the draft EIR. We hope we get them all. It's entirely possible there's things we miss, which is why it's valuable for other people to have fresh eyes on it and submit their concerns if they can identify them. Or if you just have a question and you want clarity, get those comments in. We want to make sure it's consistent with the general plan, which we have questions about, and the adequacy of proposed mitigation measures, which Alistair helped us with. As this is an upfront part, right? The mitigation comes during the entitlement phase, and hopefully, along with those mitigations, there's a monitoring plan. Typically, it's for noise, and so noise is something maybe you can fix, but you're not going to fix thousands of cars. So. And then again, one of the other issues is the long-term community impacts, and that's strictly in relations to the draft EIR. So the thing that everybody talks about, right? This is the thing we always start with, the traffic. When it's a big residential project, when it's a big commercial project like this. So in the draft EIR, they have defined vehicle miles traveled, which is part of CEQA now, when the California Environmental Quality Act. CEQA doesn't consider delay times. It doesn't consider, delays in traffic and how things are backed up. truthfully, Caltrans doesn't even really look at highways anymore. They're looking just at how many miles of travel it contributes in the area. What's your impact? So when they talk about 21,000 daily VMTs, that means that the project will generate 21,000 miles of travel for anybody coming to or leaving from the project. So that's the California standard now for CEQA, and that's what the EIRs typically look at. In El Dorado County, we have some transportation and circulation elements in our general plan, and 2 of them that are voter approved elements that have the requirements that we have to consider what those impacts are for a level of service, which is delay times and capacity, things like that. But in terms of CEQA, they don't care about delay times or capacity, which makes no sense because if you're delayed and you're idling a car, you're contributing to greenhouse gases. So when you consider also that there's another portion of the property they own that they have said that when they came to talk to us about it, that, okay, at this point now they're going to sell it off and it's zoned for big box. So that could be something else. So they have to consider what those impacts might be. That's 32,000 potentially. It could be less, but that's what they're saying. They estimate with this review that they've completed. And now when we talk about delay times and capacity for the general plan, in a community region, which El Dorado Hills is a community region, the trigger is once you get past level of service E, the specific standards and metrics for the delay times at level of service E, that's acceptable. So that means failing is fine, but when you get to super failing at level of service F, that's when we have to correct it. And the general plan says that you can't go to level of service F, you do have to mitigate. Specifically the intersection at White Rock Road and Valley View, which is, I think, Vine, going into the town center, that's, as we've heard tonight, that's pretty much at level of service E, possibly F right now. Their project is saying that it will be F, that's even with the mitigation. And they're talking about extra turn lanes there. So the draft ER classifies the VMT impact as significant and unavoidable. So they've identified that it is an impact, it's a major impact. It's unavoidable, they can't do anything about it, they can't mitigate vehicle miles traveled. And they said here that the mitigation can't reach the county no net increase threshold, meaning the county standard is that it can't increase, but it is. So they've also shared that their business model is car oriented, right? It's bulk sales. People are coming and going in cars. It doesn't lend itself to public transportation, bicycling, or walking. And then the other component of the VMT analysis is that 18% of the VMT comes from employees commuting. So almost a fifth. But the proposed mitigation only targets the employee trips because they've talked about public transportation, carpooling, walking, bicycling for employees, but has no impact on customers. So, and then, as we said, White Rock Road at Valley View is level service SF, even after the improvements, which is a violation of the traffic element of the general plan. Level service E in our community is okay, a level of service F is not. One of the things that we'll talk about a little bit more that we found was odd was that Saturday is their peak hour trip generation. It's a weekend, people are going to Costco, and their peak hour on Saturday is the highest. And it's 1,697 trips. It's the busiest period, but the traffic impact analysis really only modeled the Saturday conditions at just a few of the intersections, not all the intersections in the study. When we've reviewed residential projects, like we talked about Appian Way on Silva Valley, when Central El Dorado Hills, a specific plan was proposed for 1,000 homes here right by into the golf course. They're 3 miles out from that intersection, and they were proposing improving that intersection. So that's why we were like, well, why is it, doesn't quite sync up? They're not even looking at really at that specifically in this draft ER. So we think that's inadequate. So please do. Too much of me.
Yeah, I just want to add, Linda, in your report brought up something that's very important. We never see trucks travel on Silver Valley from Harvard to the expressway, never. And yet we will have trucks making deliveries. We will have trucks bringing fuel on a stretch of road that has high school, a junior high, and 2 elementary schools. And it didn't dawn on me till I read your report. It says, I have never seen a truck on there. And now we will see trucks on there.
Well, unless we can have enforcement and a consequence by a policy or a law from the town or the county or the district that says any 4-axle or 18-wheel vehicle that goes north of Entrada or Crossroads, whatever, has a fine of X. And then we enforce it. And that's what I'm talking about on afterwards, when it goes in. How do you enforce? You can enforce it with policy and enforcement and consequences.
I would rather not have to rely on enforcement because we don't have any enforcement down here. Do you understand that?
Yeah,
Even,
that's
you
a
know, so
separate-
we're talking about something that's in the clouds. We don't have the enforcement down here.
Yeah,
Trucks that are gonna be delivering to Costco are gonna be coming off 50, getting into Costco, and they're gonna get back onto the freeway to go back to wherever they pick up their loads from. I think very few are gonna be coming, say, on Green Valley and across Silva to Harvard, and Harvard on through past the 4 schools to get to, I mean, just logically, and I'm not saying everyone thinks logically all the time, but logically, most people are going to take the quickest route possible, and that's going to be the freeway route. I don't see any reason why a truck would deliver to Costco, dump its load, and then go past all the schools to go where there's nothing there, past there, that they need to pick up or drop off more on.
Well,
Just saying.
it's unlikely. It won't be a big component, but yeah, but you know, when you consider Costco's in, not Folsom, but when you talk about Roseville, you know, how do I go to Roseville? I go on Green Valley Road. The Safeway deliveries that come to the Safeway on Bass Lake Road and on Francisco at Green Valley, they come up from Folsom. They come up from Roseville, but those are smaller trucks. So they're still trucks, but yeah, and the fuel truck too for Safeway. So yeah, that's always a concern. But you're right. We can ask for. I think we've asked for projects in the past too. You know, you got to let your vendors know. There has to be a, you know, so, and the point about enforcement, it's true. It's like our enforcement for our roads here, it's not our sheriff's department. We're not an incorporated city. Our enforcement's the highway patrol. And, you know, we work with the highway patrol in our communities, in our neighborhoods, try to get enforcement for just speeding and things like that. They might have an enforcement period where they do enhanced enforcement if they think there's a big problem, but they're not going to dedicate a lot of resources to it because they don't have a lot of resources. It's all out of Placerville. You got something to say?
So I would say, keep in mind that even though best case scenario, they only get on and off the freeway, there's still a potential that they could overshoot the turns.
Yeah.
And then they're going up that direction. Or they go a wrong way or a back way because they're looking to get around something and their GPS takes them that way. So it is still risk that we would have them. And even if it's not the Costco trucks, there's going to be other vendors that they identify that would be delivering there. So there's other kinds of truck related activity that would occur that isn't now. And actually, I mean, the sheriff's office can in fact issue citations.
Yeah.
So yes,
But
if they're here, and if we start to see an issue, we can also ask them and say, we're really seeing an issue. Can you guys help if CHP can't?
not to say that our highway patrol isn't responsive, it's just that their resources are limited. So when we ask for them, they say we can come for like an hour when the schools are beginning. Does that mean? That's a problem. So when schools start in August, they do have, you know, that enhanced enforcement period where they're present. They want people to see them, and they will come back if there's trouble and people are identifying it, reporting it. But yeah, it's tough to have that enforcement.
But if we ask for a condition stating that there should be no truck traffic north of
Yes.
the areas where they belong, then it's enforceable.
Yeah. The difficulty though is that it has to comply with California motor vehicle law too, how they establish those. So it's tough. Is it me, Chris?
There is a process for that. The traffic commission.
Yeah.
That's how we got the no truck route on Carson Crossing. So that, I think that's a great recommendation, and there is a process for doing that.
So thank you for those points. And, that's something that we talked about. That's something to consider. It's like, traffic's like water. It goes where it will go. But yeah, that is, the plan, and what they have suggested is that it will be highway primarily. That's not to say they won't be coming up White Rock from the Costco and dropping off in Folsom, or dropping off here and going back to Folsom. So, wow, maybe they'll take Saratoga. So anyways, so these are like the initial things that we've looked at, because in the draft EIR, we're talking about VMT, and the level of service is a small part of what we're talking about, but it still is something, and it's a general plan consistency issue. So we identified those. Am I on the right screen? Yes, there we go. We have a question about we have several questions about the infrastructure. So what they're proposing right now is a temporary traffic signal on Silva Valley Parkway at Clarksville Crossing. But they're also saying that it would be physically removed when the county installs the Country Club Drive extension. Now, they've said in their draft EIR that it's possible that construction is a CIP project, that it could happen in July of 2027. Serrano, the villages back there, the ones that started construction 814, they'll have gates that access that road, but that road's not there and there's no funding for it. So really, how are we doing this? So when they say July of 2027, maybe somebody has a magic wand, but it's not conceivable. So we're going to get a temporary traffic signal. And when this project had been talked about originally, we had another development on the east-north side with AKT development. They were talking about 300 apartment units, a couple of retail buildings, but they insisted they had to have traffic signals, many of them, as we talked about tonight. And DOT is telling them you can't have them, but now we are having them. So it's a question. So we're very concerned about that, because traffic signals, for a simple traffic signal, is over $1 million. Sales tax revenue from this project is estimated between $1 million to $2 million if there is a fuel station. So it would take a year's worth of just the sales tax to finance part of a traffic signal at one of the intersections. So,
John, this is government. A temporary traffic signal will be there for 10 years. Come on.
yes.
I mean, realistically, everything would have to line perfectly for that to be a 1 year or 2 year temporary traffic signal.
Yeah.
Once it's installed, there will be so many different delays. That'll be here 10 years from now.
Yes. So we have a concern about that. So the other thing is, in the traffic impact analysis that they did, it kind of ends at Silva Valley and Harvard. There's a little bit going towards Green Valley, but there's not a lot of information in there. And when we review residential projects, it's north to south, east to west. We talk about all the intersections, and this one kind of misses that for the northern quarter, north towards the schools and towards Green Valley Road. We also noticed there's no consideration other than the highway at the interchange for Bass Lake Road. And we know there are residents that live north and east of Bass Lake Road. I'm one of them. But in Rescue and Cameron Park, parts farther east, those residents are probably not going to get on the freeway. They're going to drive on Green Valley Road. They're going down Bass Lake Road. They'll come over to Serrano Parkway down to Silva Valley, and that's how they'll get there. Or they'll come down to the highway, which is part of what they analyzed. But so there's segments missing. Serrano Parkway between Bass Lake Road and Silva Valley, really not analyzed. So we have a concern about that. The emergency access, as Tim, I think we talked about it last time, but the east side access road is 15 feet due to the topography. There's a lot of slope and granite. And so it's requiring special fire department acceptance to accept that emergency access road. So we'll have a comment about that. We talked about the truck routing, the 15 plus vehicles a day, the 10 to 12 for the warehouse, and 4 to 5 for the tankers, 2 a.m. to 1 p.m. daily. There's no enforceable mechanism that keeps trucks off of Silva Valley Parkway north of the site, which was we were talking about earlier. So can DOT fashion something that's legal that will stand up to law in California that would limit truck traffic north? I'm just troubled. Okay.
You're talking to the whole room.
Yeah.
Not to the microphone.
So, and then, we were concerned about the delivery conflict with the school, because the school's so close, but there really was no analysis of the school pickup and drop off times in conjunction with what their delivery schedules look like. And then, of course, the Country Club Drive overlap. They've suggested that July of 2027 might conflict with any construction that they're doing, but how real is it? We don't know. So these are questions that we're looking at there. And again, I struggle with this part because when we talk about the impacts of things like benzene and the fueling, and I don't feel like I have a really firm grasp on that. So it's going to take me more time to look into this, but I'm hoping more members of the community can provide some information or more questions. Maybe we just want to have an informed question. Maybe we don't have the answer, but that participation will help. So the site next to it has mapped naturally occurring asbestos. And so our concern obviously is that grading and blasting on the north side could release asbestos fibers. The wind pattern goes towards the school and the community. So there's a dust plan, but no independent monitoring at the school property line, which we think there absolutely has to be monitoring while they're doing these activities. And the thing is about NOA and asbestos is that in California, we had a big scare in the early 2000s here with it at Oak Ridge and other areas, Bass Lake. Mitigation measure here is you don't disturb it, you bury it, which is what developers do now. If they don't really grade down, they bring dirt in and build up. So even at that, there's a concern that you have to be monitoring this while those activities are going on. So that's one thing. The other thing was there's the requirement for Tier 4 equipment. So how the equipment during construction activities has to be at a Tier 4 level in terms of how their emissions impact what gases they're giving off. And they're saying that that for their mitigation measure, they're specifically saying that a Tier 3 engine on earth moving equipment, trucks, water trucks, all those different things, that Tier 3 be acceptable if Tier 4 is not available. And we're thinking, that proximity to the school, you absolutely have to have Tier 4 no matter what. So how you monitor that and mitigate that, that needs to be answered when we have this reviewed and the feedback comes back from when we get answers for this, for the project. And the other question we had was the north area, the remand area. There's no health risk assessment really on the rest of it. It's an unknown. They say they're going to sell it, and this analysis just assumes it would be similar to Costco. But what if it's not? So we're, really, are we really looking at the full picture when we're looking at this? And then the soil contamination. So I'm blanking what ESA stands for. I knew it yesterday, but it's a study essentially. They identified that there's a concrete pit and watering trough with the potential for past hazardous dumping that occurred on the site. Current mitigation is reactive, meaning that when they find it, they'll do something. And we're saying that they should probably do an additional study to make sure they know what they're going at. So more test bores and more analysis before they move forward with any sort of construction activities and have a plan moving forward. Noise. Oh, please do.
As we're looking at all of these things that APAC is looking at, I think everyone in this room should take this home to their community, pick a section, and have your community write on this to the supervisors and to the planning commission, not only to APAC. That's number one. You have a responsibility. Number two, in the previous thing, you're talking about public health. I'm very concerned about having so many cars and people being at Costco very close to an elementary school that has an open campus. Okay, that campus is open. Anybody can wander on there and do whatever they feel like doing. Okay, and you're going to have all of these people shopping at Costco, and some of them might have other ideas about dropping in at the school. I think that should be a consideration. I put that as public health. Thank you, John.
We talked about that in the past as well, right? That's a concern. So, well, the noise and the lighting, so the nighttime part's the impact on residents, and there's still impacts during the day for the school, but Specifically, they're talking about 8 nights of pouring concrete when they begin. So it's a one-time thing. It's 8 nights, but there's still impact. So the noise level exceeds the county standard by 3 decibels, the significance threshold. So it's already pretty, it's 45 decibels there now is what they've measured. And I'm always baffled by the sound studies because we look like it when they put a quick whack in here, they say, oh, it's only going up 1 decibel. It's like, what? How is that? My ears tell me something different, and I've abused my ears. I know that it's different. But we are concerned about the concrete pours. The light poles for well, I'll go through the noise and vibration. So the 2 a.m. to 1 p.m. delivery window. So again, about a dozen warehouse trucks a day, plus 4 to 5 fuel tankers. They all have backup alarms, air brakes, and those are the times that people are sleeping. And they make them, and it's required by law. They have to have those noise devices for warning. But also, it's not just the delivery vehicles; it's also the material handling equipment, forklifts, pallet jacks, reach lifts, load lifts, all the things that you use to operate that warehouse. They all make noise. So, want to make sure that it's adequately studied and that we know that that sound study is really complete and it's really considering all the impacts. The light poles are proposed for 37 feet in the parking lot. So that's tough. So the fuel facility, they talked about 50-foot candle, standard. The residential property lines to the fuel station are closer than the school are in some areas. So that's concern about that light impact. And then the signage variance is tough because Costco, that's their biggest thing, is they want to be seen from the highway. And they have a very specific sign package that they're very consistent about. And so they're looking for a variance as part of their entitlements process. So I think our initial look at this, and we'll circle back and try to find the best language on this. But right now we're thinking we probably have to say no to the variance for the signage. But they're very determined to have it. So we'll find out what the entitlement process looks like for that. And then the heritage oak tree removal. And I know Alistair had mentioned this in his comments on the scoping meeting, I believe. But so the 13 are the protected oaks that they're talking about removing. 3 are heritage oaks. So, if you can keep them and it's a visual and you can protect them, we have an oak ordinance here. But there is, as part of that oak ordinance, is that you could pay a fee and cut down trees. So if there's a way to preserve trees, I think the community would appreciate some preservation. But again, it just seems that they're saying, well, they'll just write a check. So.
But remember, they are entitled to write a check.
Yes.
But like with a lot of the effects of a project like a Costco, the effects are local, but the tax benefits go up the hill with the county. And there's no requirement that 80% or 70% or even 20% be left here and are used to better the community to mitigate the damages that are caused. If you take just for the oak trees, that goes into a fund, and they decide they're going to plant new oak trees up in Camino or someplace that's not really close to El Dorado Hills. So remember, it sounds good, but how does it affect us locally? And what's the benefit the community is receiving for the costs that we are incurring?
Oh.
Well, we also know they don't monitor.
That is true.
There's proof right outside.
Yeah, they plant, we can see it on Silver Valley.
Yeah. Well, the 11 acres next to us here was, I want to say, planted in 1994, and it lasted till about 97, and all those trees are gone. So, so the other thing is, we're concerned about what they've said in the draft EIR, design inconsistency. They said that their goal is to being architecturally appealing and sensitive to the community, but there's a conflict with the poles, the signs, and the delivery schedules at night. So that's another one. And then, so now we're at 6. I think I only have 2 more of this. It's taking forever. So some of the things that we would consider proposing, and these aren't by no means this is not everything, and maybe none of these make it in. Maybe we have different proposals, but right now, just based on the review that we've done so far, we, for transportation, we're talking about, don't do the temporary intersection with signals. That if their property's going to have a connection to the future Country Club Drive extension, then that should probably be the primary connection into their fuel station and the remainder side as well. So, so we would also want to see them demonstrate that the mitigations that they're proposing, it needs to get below service E, because that's the general plan says for White Rock Road at Valley View, and establish an enforceable truck routing plan. So we talked about it tonight several times, how we do that and how's it legal, because I know we were able to achieve some stuff in Heritage. So if they can legally do it, then we have to have that in place and ask for it to be enforced. So, and then, oh yeah.
Sorry. So one of the things that I'm gonna kind of continue to look at, if anybody can help with the transportation thing, that'd be great. I would like to see a request that we require expansion on Clarksville Crossing, at least to put a middle turn lane in there. So right now it's only 2 lanes. And so the request would be make sure that there's a buffer between them. So otherwise we're gonna have queuing probably turning off while people are trying to get into the driveways on Clarksville Crossing. And then of course we have the truck traffic because the loading dock is back there. So.
Yeah. So, and the challenge
to me,
there.
it doesn't matter that, because that's where, when we review it, we're also allowed to put like real world experience.
Yes.
Kind of, because we live around.
Correct.
And so all of us can see, if anybody's been down Clarksville Crossing, imagine 70-foot tractor trailer trucks pulling out of the side and trying to turn onto the road. So.
Yeah, and the challenge here, of course, too, is that it would only, they're not going to rebuild the highway, the overpass that goes over that. So you have a physical constraint there, 2 lanes, very narrow, with the buttresses there for the bridge that goes over the Clarksville Crossing. So the only place, oh yes, so the only place really you could do it would be at the project site, and so, but you are going to have to bottle right back down when you get to the highway if you're going south and coming north a little bit. So the public health, that that tier 4 engine requirement during the construction, that that's with the proximity to the school, we want to see that to be a requirement, not to be a, well, we'll do our best. We also would suggest that the independent third-party air monitoring, we put NOA for asbestos, but also just air monitoring at the Oak Middle School property line and maybe someplace else on the campus during all the grading and blasting, the construction part of it. And then, the actual monitoring that we measure, and we know that we're not impacting the school. And if there is an impact, then they've got to stop and figure something else out while they're doing the construction. And then we also recommend still that phase 2 core sampling around the south site before we make sure that there's nothing in the ground that was spilled or buried. Moving on to the operations and noise, that they do have white noise backup alarms for construction equipment, for tractor trailers, for the material handling. So we would recommend that, they use those because of the proximity both to the school and to the residences. And then the receiving activities are noisy, so air brakes and the idling to after 7 a.m. was what we'd say. Whether they accept that or not, I don't know. What do you got, Bill?
Yeah, hi, thanks, John. Are these formal requests, are these proposed formal requests?
These are what we're working on now. We'll probably refine them some more.
Okay,
Yeah. Yes.
well, I don't know, not now, but thank you.
No, I mean, if there's something where somebody goes, not that, but this, we want to hear that too.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So, and then the concrete mixing, we'd like to make sure that they're doing it off-site, because that is a noisy operation, and they're talking about doing it in the night for 8 days in a row. And so, like I said, it's a one-time thing. It's a week plus here in the community, but if we can mitigate it, they should be asked to do that. And then, again, we probably would recommend that they deny the variance for the signage, just because of the light impact and the visual. And then also restrict the light pole heights to 25 feet for the parking instead of 37. we try to have a dark sky policy, especially here in Eldorado Hills, but the county does as well. So we like to make sure we can maintain that. And then, so for us, for our questions, the VMT, so if it's really unavoidable impact, how did they make that determination? Did they study everything that, it's vehicle miles traveled? How do you mitigate that? There's really not a way to do it. They talked about employees doing alternate transportation, carpool, biking, whatever. How would you enforce it? So if you have questions about the VMT impact, the infrastructure, we'd like to know what that the fiscal and environmental costs of the temporary traffic signal will be for the county, and then who's paying to replace it when it gets pulled out later. When it's a county project, I'm assuming the county's going to have to pay. That's us. So, and then the infrastructure. So when they go to remove this crossing, as Tim described it could be there for 10 years with the traffic signal. When they go to remove it, okay, well, now we have an impact while we're doing that. So there's another impact. So the county considered that. So why would we not just put the real intersection in, even if it doesn't connect to a future road? This is where the road will connect to eventually. So the school safety, we talked about the traffic impact at Oak Meadow, but we haven't talked about the specifics of their arrival, the dismissals, what the potential impacts really are there. And then the traffic impact analysis, the gaps. They talked about peak hour on Saturday, but they didn't go very far north, and they didn't consider other intersections like they did for the other days of the week. And then the mitigation again for the tier 3 and the tier 4, right? We are pretty much thinking, if it's tier 4, it should be tier 4 no matter what. And then we're going to let you guys talk here. So our next steps, we have to finalize our comment letter. So we'll work as a group in the next 2 weeks, because it's March 23rd. We have to have this in by. A lot of times we get in the night before at 9 p.m. So we have to submit it by the deadline, and then we will look for it says, request the final environmental impact report responses. They're required by law to provide those responses. We just have to look and see if they're adequate for what we asked. And then our opportunity is, I think we usually get like a week or 2 weeks to review all those answers to everybody. And then, we get a chance to say, okay, we don't think that's adequate. And they say, okay, well, that's great, because those are the answers. And the project, then it's up to the decision makers to consider, did they, don't look across the table at him. He's smiling, says that's good. And then again, coordinate with the community. If you want to participate in how we're reviewing this, I anticipate that if we can't get a lot of stuff together over days, that we might try to get a room like in Dorado Hills. We have the community room at Braley's, and we probably seat 15 people in there. We do a lot of this. We could do it via Zoom. We could do it just with the shared Google document, and we can work, and then if we need to get together. But I would anticipate we'd have to get together. Well, probably next weekend, the latest. At the very latest. So, but with that, I think we would like to hear the glaring things that you think we might have not touched on or talked about that we should consider. And again, it's not that we purposely missing something, which this is a lot. It's like, I think 10,000 pages across all these. You have some of the documents right there. You want to do your visual? Yeah.
Just the report doesn't include any appendices or anything else. And there's a hell of a lot of them.
Yeah. So if you've looked at something that you've identified, you think that we should look at it, and it might be something that's like, oh, well, we looked at that, but it could be something we like, we just missed it. So I would open it up here in the room if you have a microphone nearby. If there's things you think that we missed, Bill's hand went up first, but I'm going to go that way next.
No, I think you very well outlined everything. My question to you, John, and to the board is this next meeting that you anticipate that will happen within 2 weeks, where we gather together wherever it may be. How will we be notified when that meeting will be?
So what we usually do is we see how many people want to participate, And then, like we said, if it's going to be where we need a room to do it, Rayleigh's is probably the most logical place. If not Rayleigh's, then, we could check the CSD and see if we can use like the Oakville Park Clubhouse, which we probably get the same amount of people in there as Rayleigh's. But if not, Bill's Garage. No, well, but no, I mean, if there's things we could do over Zoom and it facilitates people participating, we'll do that too. I mean, I think we just want people to be able to be part of it and be engaged.
So you will, or somebody.
Yes.
Will notify us when we can participate, however we can participate.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, I envision if we have a lot of response to it, then we'll probably just put it on our email list. And we usually only send out one email a month. In this case, we would probably send out a second so everybody can see it. And I know Alistair, and then right behind Alistair.
Part of the DRI, doesn't it have to have a cost benefit or a fiscal impact study? Because I didn't see
I don't think
anything in
the
the
fiscal
review.
impacts on the when the final comes out, yeah, but it's not part of the environmental, I think.
So
It would
you're
be,
talking about economic impact, right?
Well, I
Economic
think
impact
it would
analysis.
be, I mean, given the impact of this project, I think it could be required at this level.
Right, so, I think that we can provide questions in about that, but when the
Okay.
final EIR comes out, part of that is supposed to include
Yeah.
economic impact analysis.
And typically our county auditor controller, Joe Harn, will weigh in sort of at the end of the process, which I'd rather have it up front. But I think he looks at all the input that comes in and what the final is, and then he does this analysis. I mean, Joe did some analysis when we were talking about the Amazon Frontier project, and that's where we got. What's that?
he did it on the original read.
On Malcolm Dixon,
Yeah.
the Dixon Ranch, yeah.
Dixon Ranch.
And that's what turned the vote on Dixon Ranch's Auditor Harn came in and said, this is going to cost the county. And then the supervisors voted no on it. But like for the Frontier project, his assumption was it was a very beneficial project, but when he looked at how the taxes work with distribution and state law, I think we made it was like $30,000 a year. And we're talking about a $300 million project. So.
To me, it's ludicrous putting a gas station. And, on the benefit side, the county makes up like a benefit. Future one day, just like that. Anyway, my thing is that cost benefit analysis gets down to the nuts, and it has a lot of impact. I think for the supervisor.
So-
If you have it now, it would be that much better.
They do not do a traditional analysis of cost benefit analysis. They do an economic benefit analysis. That is talking about. It's really just about revenues and money coming in, money coming out. Usually it's attached as a special exhibit when the documents are posted for the Board of Supervisors meeting where it will be heard, but they do not do a cost benefit analysis that encompasses anything other than revenues in and out. That's what you're talking about. That's something that we should request. That's something that we may have to sort of do on our own when we make our final comments. We probably will not include that as part of the environmental impact because it's not truly an environmental impact as measured by the CEQA, but it will
So-
be, it can be covered in other comments.
Right,
Yes.
there are actually, so, because I'm looking at, the fact that they're not being currently not being requested to do any off-site changes. So all of the White Rock Road widening, it's because of Costco, right? And then the, anything down, Silva Valley towards Green Valley, ultimately, if they increase that to 4 lanes, is that us paying for it? Currently, yes. So any of the things that are like off-site that you could see that potentially would have to be done, the country club is a great one because that whole country club extension currently Costco's not being asked to invest in it, but that doesn't mean they can't. So I think if we put stuff together to say, here's what's actually gonna be an impact that's not covered currently except by the county, then that means the county, even if done with grants, it's still taxpayer money. So that's money going out that puts us in the red for a long time before we recoup the cost to it, right? Because we don't get, sales tax is only paid on non-food items, right? So out of Costco's total revenue, there was a mention made in the supervisors meeting yesterday. Roseville opened and made $1 million on day one, but that's not what we get. That's what Costco gets. We get a portion of the sales tax. Sales tax goes first to the state, and then we get a portion of it. So trying to figure out how much are we actually investing as a community in order to get this in, and how do we ultimately, get into the black? That's, I think, something that we can all write up with our thoughts and ideas. So.
Alistair is right about in terms of there are other costs in terms of, many other nuanced things in the community, whether it's the roads, the maintenance, the impacts. I know that it's tough. I think we've asked questions about like home values, things like that in the past, and that obviously it's not an environmental thing. So, but when we get past to get to the final and get to those entitlement hearings, that's when we'll probably question it. I wish that information was up front and earlier in the process, but it really doesn't come until later. We have one more over here.
I want to answer Bill's question. Bill, don't wait for us to make a report. Everyone in this room should be in their communities, getting community support and sending in letters from your community, okay? Do not depend only on what APAC does. This is your home. You live there. You should let them know what you feel. Don't depend on us.
I appreciate it. Thank you. So, I'm very much involved with the community, as you know, as Gary knows, as anybody else knows. And that I really appreciate what you say and what your concern is. I'm also expressing a concern on behalf of APAC and what APAC is doing to work with Costco on this. Thank you.
All right, you've been very patient. Thank you.
John, first of all, I want to thank you for mentioning that concern about the safety at the school, because people can just walk in there. My daughter goes to that school, so that really is something that's been on my mind as well. But what I wanted to talk about is another safety issue that faces the students, and that is the pollution, the plume of toxic pollution coming up from the gas station. In the DEIR, the air quality study that they did uses wind information from Sacramento, and they make the ridiculously false claim that the weather station there has a similar elevation and terrain to El Dorado Hills, which it's obviously completely flat down there. And it's not just that it's a different place from where the project site is, but the hills specifically channel the wind in the valley to flow in a specific direction. And that direction happens to align between the gas station and the school. In the daytime, the warmth from the sun causes the wind to flow up the valley. And so right during the daytime when kids are at the school, that wind consistently is going to be blowing directly toward the school. And that's something that they didn't take into account. And the exposure to benzene and other toxic chemicals is going to be a lot higher than what anyone would estimate when they're using weather data from Sacramento to do the analysis.
That is exactly what you have to write up and point out.
I'm in the
Because
process.
when you're talking about a 500-page document, I didn't understand that or missed it, and I'm sure most of us did here. But you see, when you can point out something based on science or fact that refutes what they are saying, hey, they're using Sacramento, that's 25 miles in a different direction. What they're assuming does not apply here. That's where you can get them. That's what you have. That's something that the planning commission can look at. The board of supervisors can look at it and say, hey, you use false information. You go back and restudy it and get the right information. That's something that you can grab a hook on, if you know what I mean, and use to quite effectively. That's a very important point. Write it up, send it in.
I have a meteorology textbook here that talks a lot about these valley winds, and it has a huge section on the proper way to perform a pollution analysis in sites like this. And it emphasizes the need for collecting data from the actual site, whereas they're using data from a completely different place that's nothing like it. Is there a process for requesting them to do an actual study of the winds in that location?
So the process is you submit those in as a response to this document, and then be very clear and say this needs to happen. And then they have to answer it when they issue the final. So in the inadequate part of this is that when they issue the final, there's not a lot of opportunity, because I think we get like maybe 2 weeks to respond. You know, if we see that in there and the response we still think is inadequate, we can raise that again, and then we can ask the decision makers, say, hey, you know, you can't certify this EIR because it's still missing these things. So it might be that they'll say, oh yeah, you have to go back and do more, but that would have to be an action. Or maybe the planning department will identify it in the response and say, with the consultant, and say, you know what, yeah, we will have to request this. And it'll delay how the project moves forward, but it will still move forward. They'll just find a way to answer it. It might be, right, we get better information, but they'll still probably move forward. They won't stop the project, but they're required to answer it. And if it's still inadequate, then that's just something as Tim was describing. Then we say, hey, listen, that was an inadequate answer. Is that really what we want to approve? And then if enough people say it, then whether it's the planning commission or the board of supervisors, if it gets that far, then it's just, at that point, those are arguments. And then after the environmental questions are answered, that's really the time where we say, well, okay, this isn't a good fit here beyond the environmental because of different things, you know, the traffic volumes that aren't part of the VMT, right? So all those things could kind of be packaged together at the end. And if it's creates enough questions, then decision makers might say, yeah, we need more. And so we get better answers, we hope. Thanks for waiting on.
Just to be clear, if you write that up, we'll take that into account and include it in our submission, but also submit it yourself.
Yeah.
And get your friends and neighbors to do it too.
John, I have two questions. Question one, earlier in the game, Rafael Martinez made an announcement that he had big issues with 3 traffic lights there. 3 traffic lights within 1.3 miles from each other. Who and what changed this? No, we don't know.
I don't know. The only thing I can think of, and this is conjecture, it's almost like a conspiracy theory, is that because what was intended before was, you know, they had moved on to 300 multifamily units for apartments, and then 2 more commercial buildings.
Right.
Maybe their analysis of that use is why they were saying no to the 3. If they removed the 300, you know, people or the 300 living units, maybe that lowered where their trigger or their floor was for yes or no on that question. But that's a question I'm hoping that they come and talk to us next month from DOT. I'm inviting them. But okay, then we would need to have a consistent voice on that. Yeah. Any trips to and from the project.
Okay, so to and from the project.
Yes.
So I want to point out for a minute on my Dutch calculator here, we have 25,000 cars coming in a week. If you divide that by 7 days, you have 3,570 miles. Cars, sorry.
Yeah.
Then if you divide that over the 21,123 vehicle mile traffic, each car is going to drive 5.9 miles. Now, according to BOS number one, he wants to bring traffic, and I'm not agreeing with him. I do agree with him. Sorry about that. I don't agree with him on other things. But he brings him in all the way from South Lake Tahoe, all the way from Latrobe, all the way from Folsom South, and up from Green Valley. Now, if you take the 5.9 miles, I just calculated it out, that would be 3 miles in, 3 miles out. 3 miles, that's not very far, because I just explained that the 3 traffic lights was on 1.2 miles. So I don't know how that's all going to be panning out on the 21,123 miles, vehicle miles traveled. Okay, that's, rest my case.
And again, I think I kind of described that when we started. We looked at that VMT, the total daily. It's like, well, how does it?
Yeah, makes no sense.
There's a formula somewhere. And, the other thing I'll describe about that, when California required that VMT become the standard, for CEQA for review, each municipality or county, city, county, you basically developed your own VMT standard for the county. And at the time, we were working on the Central El Dorado Hills specific plan, and the county's consultant on VMT was the consultant for the Central El Dorado Hills specific plan. So we knew they were going to be consistent with it. But again, it's a lot of magic. Which doesn't mean that maybe I don't understand it. It might be magic to me, and it might be perfectly reasonable to a traffic engineer, but you got to be able to communicate it, right? Yeah. So thanks for asking that. Let's see. Okay. We're in a zigzag. Sorry, we'll get right back to you. Go ahead.
I just wanted to add to the fiscal comment from before. It does actually appear in part of the DEIR as part of the urban decay portion.
Yes.
And I actually do think that they misstate it in their form, because they talk about $297 million gross. But that doesn't take into account the comment before about the amount of retail sales versus actual food sales, which are not taxable.
Yes.
So I don't think that the tax boon on this is at all consistent with what the county is kind of thinking in their head. Also, I'm concerned about evacuation routes. If there is a wind fire event, I don't think that they address the recent uptick in, because I can't remember I talked to the lady about the fire evacuation. She's like, oh, everybody will just go to Bass Lake. And I'm like, those roads don't connect that way.
Yeah. Right.
So there is a little bit of a problem there, I think, that needs to be hashed out more, because let's face it, if you look at where the fire is going to come, it's going to come down the hill at us, most likely, right? Where are we all going to go? We're all going to dump on Silver Valley while Costco is trying to evacuate if this happens during the day. And I think that that's the wind fire events are not adequately addressed, because they use too big of a window for their average fire information. And these wind fire events have just been happening more recently. Even if you do include them, if your window is too long, it's not properly taking those into account.
Yeah. And like I said, I have like 80 pages of notes. We were trying to make this very concise tonight, but yeah, again, the evacuation, I think we talked about fire and evacuation. Again, something we have to ask about: how real is this? Is this adequate? Is this what the answer we've been given? Is it real? How we measure it? Are there other standards that we can measure it against? So, yeah, valuable that we keep asking those questions. Thanks. So, does it go back?
I just want to kind of put on the record, I like Costco. I don't want to be, there's a significant amount of support to have it in the county somewhere, and the benefits of potentially doing that. And it just seems so easy as for city planning or county planning we've established a business park that takes businesses. And I know the area is zoned for Costco and they purchased the land and it's on its way. But this is where I ask for some mitigation, or there's also an opportunity for Costco to actually embrace a community and not really jam it up on us. But we're gonna need some enforcement, and there has to be consequences that, and it probably in the pocketbook. You say it for, traffic. You wanna say 18-wheeler goes north of Clarksville crossing, $10,000. North of Serrano, 20 grand. North of the Oak Ridge and Rolling Hills, it's a 30 grand fine every time. Serrano Parkway, make that more. The AQI, the air quality index, goes from a baseline and degrades to a certain amount. It's a $15,000 per month until rectified. They say they're going to put up these are just recommendations. Every onion can be peeled back a little bit, but that's where I look to my representatives that are planning out the county. And this is very comforting to see the depth of your analysis and some of these things that you have written, a lot that and when you say write to them, I think you are saying the county,
Yes.
the EDH Costco project,
Yes.
EDH Gov, County Gov, or whatever it is. And I'll write it in there, but there's an opportunity for Costco as well. They could embrace the community and say, when we're going to landscape to mitigate the air quality issues, we're not talking about 5-foot trees. It'll be 40-foot trees in 25 years. Put in something that's significant that'll mitigate that pollution that's going to go that way. If they say they're going to, we want to be visible by the highway, but not, blend into the community on the other side, there's an opportunity for that. We need their representatives, but we got to enforce it. And, born at night, not last night, it's gotta be heard. So put a truck past it, make it consequential, and then enforce it. You say 20 grand for every truck that goes north of Entrada Gate. You could probably pay for a couple more deputies that could monitor that road in a month.
Yeah. And so those are things that when we talk about going forward, so we're talking about the draft EIR now, but we have an opportunity for several months to just be in the ear with the planning department at the DOT and just keep asking questions. Hey, what's possible? What can we do? How do we get this, the limit on the truck traffic on in Heritage, they were able to achieve it. How can we do that someplace else? And still, if there's going to be a project that goes in there that does this, how can they operate but still not impact? Like you're describing north, what are the, but Alistair's right, that enforcement part's tough because how do you do it? Once it's done, the project's done. And if you don't have ongoing enforcement, then I don't know that the county has that, because we're always disappointed by that monitoring, right? It's for simple things like air quality and, sound.
Costco has an opportunity.
Yes. So. What's that? Well, we will in a second. Who was that? There was somebody else that had a hand up. Was that it?
Is the gas station a fait accompli, or is it a question?
They canceled it once, and they moved it once. But they're proposing it now. It's in the draft EIR.
Yeah.
So if there's enough resistance, there are a lot of projects that, when they get up, like if it goes to the board of supervisors, Bass Lake Road being a key point, Bass Lake North, 90 homes, the specific plan said they only had to build the park and ride. And so the supervisor at the time, while they're reviewing it, says, I'd like to have a bike lane in there. And Norm Brown said, I'll build a bike lane. And so that was part of the COA. That's a bad time to do it because nobody studied or reviewed it. So it'd be nice to have that. But also 3 years later, after he had after he was annexed into EID, he looked at it's $1 million bike lane. I didn't know it was $1 million. Well, you agreed to do it to get your project approved. So.
But I'm talking about the cost benefit, because if this gas station is the one that's the issue, You know,
Yeah.
Costco's got to realize. And
Yeah.
I just didn't know, I know it'd been.
Was one of their options not to have the gas station? Because I thought it was just switching sites or just not doing the project. I don't recall having one with no gas.
The first version of the project had the fuel station on the
I mean,
south side.
in the draft EIR right now.
Oh, in that?
There's always that's
Yeah.
what I thought I remembered. So
Yeah,
they're,
the original plan was kitty corner.
right,
Across.
Yes, that's correct.
Under the freeway, that's cross landing, right?
right.
And Silva. But it was so close to the school that they decided to do away with it and move the warehouse, which impacts all of us on Village Green. Because the impact of having that huge warehouse behind our house was just, the impact of this warehouse is a huge concern. Because we don't want them trying to switch the gas station down by the freeway and then putting the warehouse back on the north side. We worked 5 years to get it on the south side because it would literally darken your house, our entire house, and all you would see between the houses is a warehouse. If you go down to Elk Grove and see the warehouse, it's flat and it's separated by Civic Drive. It doesn't matter. The impact of a warehouse behind our Village Green is horrible. So Jans was in the meeting. Remember when the guy said, basically, yeah, we took the output from the neighborhood and we're going to walk away from the gas station. And then all of a sudden it came back.
So I just bring that up because in the draft EIR, there's always alternatives at the end of the draft. None of them say no gas station.
Correct.
They just talk about relocating. So even though they talked before about maybe not doing a gas station, they didn't even propose that as an option.
Yeah.
That's not saying you can't pose that.
Right, right.
So, you-
Yeah, John, I think the draft EIR does have a no gas station alternative, but it's unacceptable to Costco.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
have 14 project objectives listed in the draft EIR. The last one is the fueling station. When they come to there's a requirement in CEQA that if you consider, or you think of an alternative, you consider an alternative but don't address it, you should give your reasons for that. So they did that. They said, it's not acceptable. We haven't looked at a reduced sized gas station because Costco has an objective for a gas station, but they don't specify the number of pumps in their objectives, and they don't even have a profitability objective. They don't have a maximized profitability objective. So there's really no good reason that there's not a reduced size fueling station in that EIR. If they have a 2-pump station, they still satisfy their project objectives, and it should be there. Something should be there. I'm suggesting 16. Make it half size and move it down. They have a reasonable range of alternatives for the gas station, except for they don't have a reduced size gas station.
Yeah. And that's the thing with the project objectives. It's always defined by the applicant.
Yeah, they're the
It's not defined by
applicant's
you or me.
objectives. It's not nobody else's objectives.
Yeah. And I know that we looked at the topography there. When you get further south, it's like an 80-foot grade difference. And when we built that interchange, we know that there's a lot of blasting. It's mostly granite.
It gets there's a hill.
Yeah.
Very steep down Silva ways.
But
But I think you'd still have room to squeeze in a 16 station, gas station, especially if you move those 68 parking spaces for employees back over to the south side. Now they're providing way more parking than the county requires.
Yeah.
I haven't done the numbers yet, but I will. And so you could get all the parking you need, and way more than the county requires, and including the employees' parking on the south side. So you could really reduce the footprint of that fueling station if you cut it in half and moved it south. And you wouldn't have to do mass grading of that big hill at the far south end of Silva section.
Very good. So if you don't remind us. So
I'll send you.
Thank you.
Some stuff going for you.
I want to get back in memory lane for a minute. 2018, John Hydell bringing into a Rotary meeting a letter of intent, Costco coming to town. Last week, 2018, guys, that's a while ago. Last week, the Board of Supervisors approved the Placerville team to hire a realtor to start talking to the landowners and the homeowners on White Rock Road. Now, how long that will take, that process, we don't know. Obviously, in the beginning of this meeting, it's going to take a while. Now, this timeline, all of a sudden, it's starting a week ago. Now, Costco is saying, hey, we don't want to comply with that timeline because that doesn't help us really. Because that puts our whole plans off for years to come because the county is not moving very fast on anything. So in 2019 and 20 and 21 and 22, Costco didn't figure out that White Rock had to be widened to accommodate their store. Very funny. So now we are getting to a point that, hey, Costco says, well, we're not going to wait for White Rock to be widened. We want to go now. And if that is not going to happen, we're not going to build. I don't say that they're not going to want to build, but they're going to put like a pressure here somewhere. Hey, don't worry about your White Rock because we want to go. Well, you should have told us that 6 years ago, maybe. Thank you.
You ready? You got it?
Yeah, so on the reducing the size of the gas station, there are studies that show that actually makes things worse in certain respects because it leads to additional queuing while people are waiting. So there's a lot more idle time for cars. And Costco's theory, at least, if you read their reports on this, is that the more the better, not to sell more gas, but to keep the cars moving. You're going to sell the same amount of gas no matter how many pumps are there. Better to keep them moving. So I don't know if I would recommend that as an option. I think no gas station is definitely a good option. And I mean, to the other comments about like, why are they doing this, right? They had to know a gas station next to an elementary school was going to be a flashpoint. And so either it's a must-have and they can't do this project without it, or the cynic in me says, we're going to piss off a bunch of people by proposing a gas station next to an elementary school, and then we're going to give it up at the end of the process. And all of a sudden, the goodwill that you're talking about is, wow, great. Costco listened to us and you know, softened the blow. So that's not for your reporter for these comments, but
yeah,
they knew they were picking this fight with a bunch of PTO parents, right? And so like, there's something behind it.
Yeah, and so they did pull the fuel station out of the project at one point, right? They switched sides and they said, well, okay, no fuel station. So it's a consideration somewhere along the line. And the thing, and you had mentioned the queuing. And so I've heard from some parents at the elementary school, well, 3 of them don't have kids there anymore. So, hey, they're free. But they were asking, you know, there's a lot of cars lined up to drop off and pick up. What's the air quality impact from the existing? Is that considered in this?
So it's not, so I asked a lot of questions about the impact on the school and the pickup and drop off times to the representatives they had at that meeting a couple of weeks ago. And essentially their view, or at least that person's view, is that Costco washes its hands of problems of the school and that the school needs to fix the problems with its pickup and drop off, whether or not a Costco goes in there or not. And I thought it was a curious response and maybe not the most tactful when you're talking to a bunch of parents from the school, but
yes,
their view was that it's really like that's a problem with or without this project.
Yeah.
And the school district needs to do.
Yeah, because I was curious that there was no analysis, but that wasn't measured. And you know, the same with the highway. The highway used to back up when I used to commute. You know, I worked at home for probably 15 years, but Highway 50, when I moved here in 1995, was a dead stop all the time. It moves now with all the lanes, but there's still periods where it's, you know, it backs up. But so, I mean, I know they did some analysis of that, but I was concerned more about the school. You know, and when those parents said it, and parents were saying, oh, well, you know, there's a pretty big impact from what we're doing right now. It's like, well, Is it? Have we measured it? I don't see it, so, yeah.
Don't go into a negotiation without some bargaining chips. And some of those chips, some of them are A chips and some of them are D chips. And you may throw away the D chips to get what you want. You may have to throw away that A chip to get what you want. So you just have to have your ammunition ready to go and see what happens.
You know, and then if you do away with the gas station, they still own that land. And somewhere down the line, they'll build something else, maybe an atomic power plant. You know, and the other thing is, it is the problem of pickup and drop off is a problem that this county has insofar as schools are concerned. Okay, and it's kind of different from the problem that we're having now with Costco, so the Board of Education here should be doing something where you don't have all of those parents picking kids up, dropping kids off, and now kids running all over the place on those scooters and electric bikes and everything else.
Trying to solve one problem right now. Slow down. Yeah. And it's the truth. It's the truth, so.
Get to midnight?
Look, here and then back. You ready, Linda? Do you and go back?
So just one thing to consider, we can do our best to try to put the information in. It's super helpful to have factual information that can be relevant. If we go through all of this and it still goes into approval, understand that we have the right to sue and stop it. But it has to be on factual legal evidence. So as much as I hate saying that, because I hate having to go through lawsuits all the time, but it's still an option. If we have concerns, we brought them up, they decided to ignore them or not address them, then we still have the right, if it gets approved, to go to court on it. Okay.
Yeah.
And even some of the post launch monitoring, if that's something that comes up, if they agreed that this was going to be the basis for it and there's been no changes in the conditions and all of a sudden the air quality is 3 times worse than what they said they were going to produce, we can take them to court on it. So who pays for that? The citizens that would take it up. The county won't do it. So
I have to look at the calendar. I could probably let it go the rest of that week, so that's fine. So we're just talking about if you're going to provide comments for us to include, or you suggest for us to include. Bill is trying to say, well, have we thought of the deadline? And we usually work right up to it, which is not good for anybody. But Bill is suggesting if you get comments to us by the 16th, which is Monday, that would help. We'll try to get an email out if we have enough interest for enough people to get together as a group and say, hey, we're doing it at this date, at this place, or we're doing it via Zoom. One of those two options, and we would probably want to get it out like the same timeline by Monday.
I would say just remember, this isn't going in front of the commission or the board. This is just the draft EIR.
Yeah.
So really, they're just going to take what we get. So if it's up until the last day right before, that's fine to deliver.
Well, yeah, but we want to make sure they're in and that they're fully formed before we,
Right.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Kind of semantics, is it better to send stuff to you to consolidate these issues?
yes and yes. No, if you have comments to submit, we want to hear them, but there you go, intensities. But no, if you have something you think that we would like to share or be aware of that maybe we missed, please send them to us, but absolutely send them in, whether it's in 1 or 10. They do a lot of, keep in mind, planning commissioners are volunteers too. They're appointed, but they're volunteers. They read everything we read, and sometimes more, often more. So I would make sure you CC all 5 of the planning commissioners. We will gladly take anything you want to share with us and see how we can fit it in. But if it's a concern you have and you don't think we're addressing it right, you should still send it in as your own comment so that it's being seen and it's not just, oh, APAC said, it's community says, you said. And we wanted to circle back with, to what Linda had said. So at APAC, right, so we have no money, we're volunteers. So when we talk about lawsuits, APAC's policy is that we are never a party to any litigation. We won't start it, we don't support it. But the community can do what the community needs to do. And so independent members of APAC, Bill will sue everyone. No, I'm just, but no, if you're volunteering and working with us, we would just say that, you're going to be part of a lawsuit, or if you're having, you can never say APAC said this unless we really said it. So, I mean, we appreciate all the help we can get, so.
To your earlier point, I hate to add more work to it for you, but send it to every member of the Board of Supervisors too, because it's time to get it. This may not be heard by them for another year and a half, but you got to start them thinking about it. They have to know that, remember, people who live in El Dorado Hills are concerned about the project, that these are the issues that they're concerned with, whether it's noise, gases, traffic, whatever. If it's 10, send them all 10, so they have a sense that the community's involved, they are concerned, and it's something that they can at least consider in 2027 or whenever it comes up for approval. So copy everyone. Copy the Mountain Democrat.
Hey, we're only 2 minutes over. Look at this. That is remarkable. So, we're going to close out this conversation. I thank you everyone for being here and participating. Remind everybody that if you have public comments and you can't be at our meeting and you would like to get an answer from like an applicant or a county staff, if you submit your question to us on Monday and our meeting's on Wednesday, we can get the questions to whoever needs to answer so they can have them at our meeting instead of getting back to us the next month. And then the other item is that our next meeting is Wednesday, April 8th, back here in this room, 6:30 p.m. I'm hoping transportation will be here to have a talk with us about spending transportation money. So thank you for participating tonight, and enjoy the rest of March. How do we do that?